if you have even a small doubt about that person, if you gut feeling says there's something wrong in their answer, better to not hire. You take notes of what's important to that person, right?
Right.
And then you have to leverage those items to convince them to pick you against others.
Hello and welcome to the Gross Profit Podcast. My name is James Kennedy. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Procurement Express. We help your company manage their company spend with magical features, but that's not what I'm here to talk to you about today. I'm joined by Micky Mereu, which who's going to pronounce that name better later on. Micky and I get to know each other because Micky is the longest surviving paid search agency that we have worked with at Procurement Express. He does an excellent job with his team. We've really enjoyed working with them now for a couple of years. But I wanted to get him on the podcast to talk about something a little bit different, which is his success and how come he's able to put a team together that can actually meet the needs of their customers. It's very important when you're running an agency, a service agency, I guess, and it's something that we could all get better at. So, Micky, before we get into that, you're very welcome to the podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are, background in the business, just to fill people in.
Sure. Thanks, James, for having me. And you did great, Micky Mereu. So very, very close, not that easy. And fingers crossed for our collaboration with Procurement Express, of course. I'm probably one of the tallest digital marketers in the world. You don't know that. It's a fun fact. I'm almost like 2 meters tall. And that makes me closer to high performance, this kind of things, So jokes aside, I run a Midsummer agency. We are a team of 11, 12 plus me, so 12 in total. And we mostly help e-commerce and software as a service from North America and Europe, basically making more money online, whether that means more sales or more clients or leads through paid ads, conversion rate optimization, and analytics. These are our main service areas.
Can you tell us, how did you get into this business? Where did you start and how long have you been in business?
Yeah, sure. So I'm in the industry since 2009. I've been working both client side, freelancing, and agency side over the past, 14 years now. Yeah. And I've been living in Italy, Belgium, China, UK. What I like of this world is like the dynamics, the excitement of working with many different aspects of the marketing. Basically, during the years, I've been playing with pretty much every type of industry, markets, language, business models, company side. So after this experience, I was like kind of feeling missing what I'm passionate about, which is my own place of birth, which is Sardinia. It's an island. I practice spear fishing, free diving, so it was kind of tough to do that in UK. So I decided to get back and start restarting freelancing, basically from where I live, with a different approach. I wanted to work more with international clients, and because there were not great places to work in Sardinia, like large agencies or marketing companies like that, I decided to create my own, basically, and start my own business.
That's interesting. So I guess the big advantage of building your own business is you build a lifestyle. Sometimes it's a dirty word, I think, a lifestyle business. The people, VCs, talk about it in a kind of disparaging way. But that means, I guess, you get to decide the culture of your company, who you hire, who wants to be around you. And for sure, pretty quickly, like if you're a technician like me, I was a programmer, like I used to do all the work. But then it doesn't take very long before, you need it. When you get a bigger team, suddenly you're just trying to do work through other people, which is not something I was taught about in college. I remember, I don't know about you at the beginning, I don't want to say picking people up off the street, but like anyone who would work with me, I was like, you're in, and weirdly, shout out to Mariska on our team. She was the very first employee. And I think it's fair to say she's one of our best ever employees. So I thought, oh, this hiring thing is easy. Like all you do is just pick people off the street. They are automatically amazing. And then you're off to the races. Now, subsequently, not calling out any names, I found that not necessarily to be true. So what was your experience in your early hiring experience? What went well? What wasn't working for you? What made you want to get better at this skill?
So it wasn't too bad at the beginning because like I always have processes, checklists, and I read a lot, so I kind of study that because I know hire manager. I was just starting out. At some point, I started to need help because the freelancing gig was growing, and I need help to find more people to serve clients and to grow the business overall. So the challenge in the consulting business, as you said, were chicken and egg kind of problem. People and clients are the two main components. And on the people side, because of the type of agency I had in mind, I wanted to find the right people, similar to what another methodology taught us, the EOS, that I know you guys are also following. Finding the right people is extremely important to make the machine work. So the beginning, again, it was like, okay, let's do a practical test to these guys. Let's see how they are, creating ads, doing some basic tasks in the industry. We always had this hard skill component because it's very technical, as you said. So if you don't even pass that step, it's a no-go for sure. And then there was a cultural fit. So one thing I learned in my past experience was that when I wasn't aligned with the culture, mission, and vision of the company, at some point the magic disappears. Like it cannot work. But again, because we always audit our own process, we always try to improve to get better. At that point, I made this new methodology that seemed interesting to explore, and so I started reading this book.
Well, before you get on to that, let me ask you a controversial question. So, you didn't read this book for fun. You stubbed your toe on something, something happened, probably painful, that you went, no, this can't go on. So what was the moment that made you realize, no, I've got to change my approach?
I'm not 100% sure we had some of this type of events. Most of the time when we introduce new process for whatever department in the agency, we use like the MVP approach. So we develop a very small version of the process. We test it. And if we see early results, we grow the machine. So we keep it adding elements of this methodology into ours, and we saw it worked. So we said, why not roll out the full process, even though it's adapted to our context. Maybe there was some unconscious sort of pain that I had, which pushed me to make a change there. But yeah, I don't recall a specific kind of change point from one day to another. Or maybe I just forgot it, which is
interesting. We acknowledged before this is a sensitive topic to be talking about on a podcast, right? I'll tell you why I was interested to talk about this. You and I left a job in a big company so that we didn't have to work in a big company. And weirdly, what we go and do, we build a company, you get successful, and what does it start looking like? The big company you just left. You're going to have a company culture, whether you design it or not. My business partner, Rich, pushed me. I primarily would do the hiring. I tell you what stubbed my toe on this. He said, James, you're just kind of finding people and you're bringing them in and you're not putting enough effort into it, And every time I added someone to the team, it was taking a big risk because it only takes one, person who's misaligned to really damage the whole organization. And I saw myself as I was hiring saying, listen, this is actually probably the most key skill I could have as a CEO, is because I'm just trying to assemble the team. So that's why I'm interested, because I see the alternative companies like you guys, you deliver great service. I'm interested to hear what we're going to talk about now, but I'm guessing it's about the alignment component where you just have the right sorts of people together who have the same similar values. Tell me about the book. You're bearing the lead here. Which book opened your eyes when it came to hiring?
No relation with the book at all. Just a full disclaimer. It's this guy. I have it on my desk. The Who. It's called Who. Solve your number one problem. It says the issue is not what to do or how to do or when to do it, is who do it. I randomly ask my network to suggest books, usually at the beginning or end of the year. And this was one in the list back in beginning of last year or 2 years maybe ago. And so again, as I was saying, we were not doing things wrong. So I went against one of the principles I like don't try to fix what's not broken. Our hiring wasn't broken, but still we knew there was room to improve that. So we moved from spending probably about total two hours in time for people that end up working with us, so hired. So for the full process, multiply that by all the candidates, of course, to more than double the time invested in speaking with the people. Basically, the methodology is very scientific. There is a lot of data behind. They run tests. They tested this method with multiple Fortune 100 CEOs, billionaires. Which is why I said you need to adapt that to your context. We are not like a 1,000 people company that hires hundreds and hundreds of people per year. We need way less people than that, but still the principles are the same. And so the claim was you'll be hiring 90% of the time A players and save a lot of money because we know how much it costs a bad hire. I'm not sure in Ireland, but Italy has pretty, hopefully has pretty strong and strict rules for employers, which is good, but still the risk is a bit higher. And so it's basically a framework. It starts from the actual job description and go through every step of the process, which includes sourcing candidates, selecting candidates, selling to candidates. I'm very good at selling more than hiring, so that part I like most than the others. And so basically, it's about treating the people you hire like clients, investing a lot of time. The book comes with a set of templates and interview models where they suggest some exact word-by-word question to ask. We kept the test part, so we start with a practical Excel test with our candidates. Then now with ChatGPT, we probably need to review also that. Last year wasn't that prominent.
Full disclosure, I come up with a job description and I put it into GPT just to make it look nice. And then I see the candidates taking that, putting that into GPT and replying to the job, which I'm actually not against because it's a fairly smart use of time.
Yeah, still, if you're looking for that type of candidate, that's already, kudos to them. But still, now our last hire in April, which means the big wave of ChatGPT was about to start. So next hires, we probably need to refresh a little bit the process. But again, what's interesting is that you invest way more time. Basically, the book says that at the end of the process, it's like you've been working with that person for a year.
Yeah.
For the depth of the conversation.
Yeah.
And so you start with it's called Who interview. So it's an initial 30 minutes chat where you try to understand their career goals. The screening interview, the first one. You start with your career goals, what you're good, what you are bad at. So there's a lot of self analysis for the candidate. And then we ask them about their last 5 bosses, how would they rate them on a scale of 1 to 10. And there is a reason why you do specific question like that, because in the following steps, you use that information to, kind of double check what they're saying. When you do something like a reference check,
Right.
there are some questions where you say, what will your boss say when we call him? At that specific moment you say that, he cannot lie. He cannot tell you anything that is, this is just little things really, because it's more complex than just questions.
Let's talk numbers here. We're both conversion rate nerds here. So let's talk about, say we have a hire. Do you start off with a target like, okay, I'm going to look at 100 CVs, 30 CVs?
Not really. This is something that is still using a voodoo process, let's say, meaning that, again, we don't need huge numbers of people every year. We can be very selective. Like recent hire was 1 out of 200, approximately, applications.
And then, so, out of 200 applications, you'll pick what, say 40 for first screening interview?
Even 20. Yeah, it's about 10%. Yeah, I'd say. Yeah. One of the aspects that is very interesting that says basically, if you have even a small doubt about that person, if your gut feeling says there's something wrong in their answer, better to not hire than hire. So just, throw that candidate. Yeah. Just because, again, it's the principle of having the wrong people on board that costs you. It's better to let an A player go than having a C player in your team. So yeah, 1 out of 200 applicants. Something that is not in the book is obviously the tools and the other process that we developed. So we moved from, LinkedIn, spreadsheets, LinkedIn ads for candidates, spreadsheets, to some tools that do the job, have a pipeline, automatic replies, and other workflows. Otherwise, that couldn't be possible. And during these steps, you really dive deep on the candidate employment history. You ask specific questions for each position. And it's surprising the amount of stuff that comes up. Because after the screening, there is a deep interview called Who interview that can last usually 2 hours. The book suggests up to a full day. And also that put people in a position where they start to feel being, tired and stressed. So you can also test the aspect. We asked ourselves whether that would be too much of the time invested by the candidate for maybe having a no thank you as a final decision. So we were thinking of having some other type of incentive, whether that's, some Amazon, 200 Amazon credit especially for more senior. Even though that being invested in this process is also part of the type of people that we usually hire.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, sometimes we do paid pieces of work, and how people deal with the money around that also tells me something sometimes. So
yeah,
it's an extra data point. Like even just, are they able to get me their PayPal? Is it, how do they follow up, or all of these things? It just gives you an extra piece of information.
Absolutely.
I'm in favor of paying people as well, because then it sets an expectation like, this is a paid piece of work. I want to see what you do when you get paid, not when you're doing this as a quote unquote freebie or whatever, remove any sort of excuse for not your best work.
It's part of our culture to do things well, to respect people. People is very important. Yeah. It's very people-centric, small organization still. So we appreciate those who take the time. Depends on the market you operate, both in terms of industry, so the competition, and also culture, meaning like where do the candidates come from.
Okay, so far we put up the ad, that's taking us, say, 2 hours, go through the CVs, that's taking us 2 hours. We've done 10 hours of interviewing, probably another 5 hours of scheduling. So we're up to about 40 or 50 hours of work so far, just to get down to these, 5 people you're going to spend 2 hours with each, or up to a day?
Yeah, well, the CV screening now takes very, very little time. We're also introducing some other automations there. As you said, like there are other aspects, the little details like joining late a meeting or not being a bit rude during an email reply. That's already a signal to us. And it's still cheaper than the money you might spend doing a bad hire. So it seems cost effective to us.
Sometimes I like to think, well, how many hours have I spent on this task in order to know whether it has been done properly or not? So what I'm hearing is at least 40 hours per hire. So that means you got to put that in your calendar to make sure you've done enough work on it, right?
Yeah, which is why I started to get help, and so I'm not doing that myself any longer. I just entered the process at some point in the process. Plus, as I said, we have this kind of hiring waves, 1 or 2 times a year. So you focus your energies there. Yeah. And the more some aspects also get better and better. Like, for instance, during writing job description is also, branding. Sort of the more you grow, the more you'll be attractive and the better candidates you start receiving. That's sure. What we saw. So it technically tends to decrease the amount of time you spend in not fit people.
So let me ask you about this 2-hour interview, because it's intimidating me a little bit. I'm the sort of guy who runs out of cocktail conversation after about 4 minutes, I mean, it's quite intimidating for me to sit down and have to spend 2 hours. So how do you handle that? Are you a natural, or are there techniques you use to keep the conversation going and make it useful?
So we start with, this is going to last 2 hours, and their face is like, what? Well, they know in advance when we book the time with them. So we ensure they have water, if they need to go to the toilet, sort of things, basics, Actually, as soon as you start talking, it goes extremely fast.
Right.
So time flies. You end up destroyed for sure. It's pretty long time. But end of the day, you really, really know a lot about the person. It's worth the time invested so far. We tested this process. You can always play with the kind of limits and kind of conditions for which a candidate moves to the big 2 hours interview, because of course, if you have to hire 3 different people altogether, that's tough, and that's when you probably need to do another adjustment of the whole process at some point. But the fact that this is intended to be like, the audience of this book seems to be more larger organizations, let me think that it is still an investment. Like, all the money goes to marketing. I'm happy, thanks for this. We are in the marketing industry, but finally in an organization, I also think that both retaining customers and people is becoming crucial, at least in our industry, which is super competitive. Like, even in the UK, I recall people literally could change work every 3 to 6 months. It was crazy how fast it went. All for, having a promotion and career progression. Makes sense from, a career perspective, but a brand that sees main point of contact changing every 3 to 6 months, back to, client service. You need to explain again everything. You need to restart from scratch, and so on and so forth. In fact, from what I know, after COVID, even in the digital industry, people is investing a lot of money into retaining people, because again, even training and development, it costs a lot.
So maybe we'll just talk about that, your strategy for retaining, because that's a big part of it, right? No point in getting this great staff, you can't keep them. So you've got down to your last, sounds like 3 to 5 people you've done a deep dive on, if I'm not wrong, or is it only less than that you would do the 2-hour interview with? Is it just before you're pretty sure you want to make an offer that you invest at, or do you do it with multiple people?
No, multiple people. I think we got half of the people with this new methodology now. Only a couple of times we ended up with more than one final candidate, because one part of the process is also when you are in the selection phase, you compare two or three people with the more objective way and scientific way possible. But yeah, you invest upfront still on the 2 hours.
Okay, so let's move to the next part, which I find is the most underestimated part, and I've definitely made this mistake in the past, is the offer, right? So when you've decided, okay, this is my girl or guy, what happens then? How do you make sure that they're actually going to accept having gone through all that effort?
That's the selling part of the process. So first of all, in the previous steps, you already touch base some of the topics which you'll be using in the sell phase. The book says there are 5 Fs: fit, family, freedom, fortune, and fun. So during these conversations, you take notes of what's important to that person, right?
Right.
And then you have to leverage those items to convince them to pick you against others. Obviously, we know that when it's only salary driven, at some point something will not work. Of course, that's pretty big part, pretty big component of the package. Sure. But one of the questions we ask is the top 3 reasons that will motivate you to choose your next career move. And I don't know if it's about, they don't tell you when you are face to face that money is important, but to us, it barely was mentioned in the top 3. There was something else. And so differentiate yourself on those and position yourself on those, and you will again start attracting people that is more in line with your way of working. So having a good career, about us page, the description, job description, we talked about that already. And so you leverage those elements, whether it's, say, development, you reinforce about the benefits that we have in the training program. We have a dedicated budget for development. We pay for, conferences, this sort of thing. Family, I have a dog. Working with us means that we have flexible time. So you will have plenty of time from working from home to, have your dog out for a walk, these kind of things. It's, again, selling, literally. Marketing to people. And it's a good way of doing it. I mean, I'm not lying. It's what it would be. It's just emphasizing the elements and the components that are important to them.
Interesting you talk flexibility. For me, if I ask someone why they applied and they say if it's a remote position, that's a red flag straight away for me. I understand people want flexibility, but we're on a mission here, and there's a way we want to work, and the work is really important. We want people who are bought in for what we're doing, not just, and my approach to that in terms of selling is from the very start in the job spec to be very clear about what your values are, like what you can get there. Like, at the very start, if you're attracting people who are interested in our style of working, and this comes back to EOS a little bit, like having your values out there, that makes it much easier when you get to this stage. And then when you talk about company values, well, like we do, I wait for that sort of spark in their eye when you see, like, yeah, when I saw you have "Don't Let Anybody Fail," for example, is a popular one for us. Is like you said, when I saw you had "Don't Let Anybody Fail," I was like, yeah, that was really, that you can see the emotion come out in it. It's easier for me to identify whether they really are, right for us. And also at this last phase, then I have heard it a couple of times where people are like, listen, I applied for this job because of this weird value you have. I haven't seen that anyone else, and then for me, they're the people you want, because then there's the alignment.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the right person in the right seat, if it's a wrong person, there's no way to fix that. So the people component is on the values, on the culture. Right seat is more hard skills, is like what your job was going to be. So that's doable. If you're not in the right seat, we might move you to some other area, or we might create a position for you, as long as you are the right people. Back to what you mentioned before, the people copying your job description to ChatGPT, and then, there is a piece of the process that mentioned that. It says, like, basically you don't have to talk too much about you before they talk about them, because there's this sort of parrot sort of talking, copying, trying to seem like they are, perfectly aligned. We don't talk a lot about our values because we try to communicate our values in other components, but we do take it very seriously. We know our values, and after screening what they said, we can say, okay, this is okay, this is okay, this is okay, this is very not okay. Fresh. Right. Sometimes it's like you feel like bad. You're just, but at the end of the day, it's for the sake of happiness of both. Even a person that is in the wrong place will not be at its maximum potential, I think.
It's, what's interesting about this is you and I sounds like we're particularly lucky with our first hire. And it makes me wonder, like, if I hadn't been that lucky, would anything else have happened? I like to believe it's all about me and Rich and how great we are, but I don't know. Like,
same.
Without Mariska, I'm not sure. Well, we definitely wouldn't be where we are, no doubt about that. But I don't know if we'd be anywhere, I guess. And it maybe highlights the importance of a really, really great hire. We'll bury this at the end of the podcast, so no one's going to hear it, right? So we touched briefly at the beginning. We talked about failed hires, failed hire being one that doesn't work out after 1 in 10 times. But it's the superstars that make all the difference. Like, I think this is by my experience, is you just have some people who are just, in a different stratosphere, make a bigger impact. I think it's a power law or something. I don't know.
Same. I don't know if it's due to the fact that we were at the very beginning, so less rumor, less confusion, less things to think about, and we could see things clearly, maybe. Because the gut feeling component, it's something that I use a lot in every decision I make. And for hiring as well, it cannot be 100% gut feeling. Again, this is very scientific. There are, numbers. But still, one thing that could be explanation of that superstar number 1, 2, and 3 hires could be the attribute to that, maybe. Who knows?
All right. This has been super interesting, I have to say. I love nerding out with a business owner on these sort of things. So it's been cool to chat. Thanks, Micky.
Sure. Thanks, James. It was, amazing time, and keep doing this awesome podcast.
All right. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you were interested in or enjoyed that podcast and that discussion. Hopefully you're getting a vibe for the sort of guests we're trying to get on the show. If you yourself are listening to this and are looking for a way to promote yourself, it's something that we do. We invest quite a lot in each episode. We push it out to thousands of people on our newsletter list, and now our YouTube and other channels are growing. So if you're interested in this business, and God bless you, you are strong enough to have got this far into this podcast talking about business, I would definitely love to have a conversation with you. So you can reach out to me, james.kennedy at Procurement Express, or at James Kennedy at Twitter. Or if you can think of someone else you would recommend who might be a good guest for the show, I'd also be very interested in talking to you. So until the next time, thank you very much for listening.